Have you ever stopped to think about where legal responsibility, actually ends? Today, we're going to dive into that whole fascinating puzzle, and we'll do it by looking at a single, really powerful story. We're going to explore the surprising and sometimes totally invisible lines the law has to draw around our actions.
So let's just start with a quick thought experiment. Imagine your actions kick off a huge chain reaction, a domino effect of harm that reaches people you've never even met. The question is, how far does your legal responsibility actually go? I mean, does it just go on forever, or is there a limit? Okay, so our story starts with a simple moment of carelessness. We have a driver, let's call him Gary, and he's just not paying attention. The result is absolutely tragic. He runs over and badly injures a child. But, and this is the key, the harm doesn't just stop there, not even close. This one event kicks off a whole chain reaction of shock, both emotional and physical. To really get our heads around the legal problem here, we first need to see just how far the ripples from this one act actually spread, and you might be surprised at who gets pulled in.
So first up, obviously, you have the child. They're the direct victim, the one who is physically injured. Then you have the mother. She was standing right there, nearby, and suffered severe shock from what she witnessed. And finally, and this is where it gets really interesting, we have a guy named Hugh. Now, Hugh is a total stranger. He only saw a TV report about it hours later, but the news made him so violently ill he needed treatment.
And this is the central question, isn't it? We know Gary is responsible for the child. That's a given. But what about the mother? And what on earth about Hugh? Does Gary's legal responsibility cover the direct victim, the nearby witness, and the guy who just saw it on the news? That's the puzzle we're here to solve. To figure out a puzzle like this, the law doesn't just guess. It has a very specific toolkit. And the most important tool for our story today is a concept called the neighbor principle. Let's dig into what that actually means. So at the very heart of this principle is an idea called a duty of care. In plain English, it's just the legal requirement we all have to be careful and not hurt other people through our carelessness. As a driver, for instance, Gary obviously has a duty of care to pedestrians and other cars on the road. That much is clear. So how do courts decide if you owe someone that duty? Well, they use a test. And the key phrase to remember is reasonably foreseeable. They ask a simple question. Would a reasonable person in Gary's situation have been able to predict that their actions could cause this type of harm to this type of person? And this is exactly where that neighbor idea comes in. Now, it's crucial to understand this has nothing to do with the person who lives next door to you. In legal terms, your neighbor is anyone who is so closely and directly affected by what you do that you should have had them in mind. They're basically in the immediate splash zone of your action. Okay, so we've got our legal tool. Now for the fun part. Let's actually apply this neighbor test to the three people in our story, the child, the mother, and Hugh, and see exactly where the law decides to draw the line. And wow, when you lay it out like this, the line becomes crystal clear. Look at the mother. She was physically close to the accident, she had a direct relationship with the victim, and her shock is considered legally foreseeable. I mean, of course a parent would be horrified. Now compare that to Hugh. He was at home, hours later. He's a total stranger. His severe reaction to a news report is just not something a reasonable person could have foreseen as a direct result of a car accident. The reason the mother is included here is based on solid legal history. Landmark court cases, for example, have established that a driver's duty of care can extend to loved ones who suffer that kind of nervous shock from seeing the immediate aftermath. In the eyes of the law, her severe reaction was a direct and sadly predictable result of Gary's negligence. For Hugh, though, the situation is completely different. The connection between Gary's driving and Hugh getting sick is just too weak, too indirect. The law basically says he's too far removed for a duty of care to exist. You know, there has to be a cutoff point somewhere, and Hugh falls on the other side of that line. So, let's put all these pieces together and see what the final legal verdict is in this whole chain of events.
This breaks it down perfectly. Step 1. Gary drove carelessly. Okay. Step 2. That created a clear duty to the direct victim, the child, no doubt. Step 3. That duty also extended to the mother, who was a foreseeable witness. But step 4 is the big one. That's where the line is drawn. No duty was owed to Hugh, the remote viewer, because he was just too far away from it all.
So here's the bottom line. Gary is legally responsible for the harm caused to the child and to the mother. But his responsibility does not stretch all the way to Hugh. That chain of liability was broken, simply because there was a lack of foreseeability and proximity.
And that leaves us with one last big thought. This legal principle was developed long before the internet. In our world, where a tragic event can be live-streamed and go viral in seconds, affecting millions of remote viewers, does this legal line still make sense? It really makes you wonder, where would you draw the line today?